And then I'm waiting to hear back from David. David had to go back to Pennsylvania for some personal stuff, and unfortunately has been not very communicative about what's in his future. So we'll see.
It's just Matt and I.
For now, Kaleo is here in spirit, but he will be in Hawaii and not logging in today.
Gotcha. Sorry I didn't make it across town today. I know you went a lot farther. I've just I had it in my head that it was a Zoom call all day, even though Kurt and I explicitly talked about going in town, and I had so much shit to catch up on this morning, and I just was hammering stuff, and then was ready for Zoom call in my mind the whole time.
Don't worry about it, man. Funny thing is, I was supposed to have a lunch today with Dew Point. They're a big managed services IT company. If you watch a state game, they've got the marquee that scrolls across the bottom during the games.
Yeah.
Boss got COVID. So they're locked down for another 10 days. So I can't have lunch until next week. Then I was supposed to meet with the Michigan Chamber of Commerce and do like a 12-part educational series. Like every month we bring something to business leaders. She's locked down because the Michigan Chamber told everyone to go home and work remotely. So she's not allowed to have a face-to-face meeting.
Yeah.
So I drove here for a training, a lunch, and a meeting. And I get to train you.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
My daughter had to see a doctor yesterday, and it was a video call, and he totally botched what she had going on. And I'm so fucking pissed with all that shit. It needs to be done.
We had our best friends, the Collinses, who I've talked about all the time. Mike came down positive on the 27th. We were supposed to come up here on the 29th or the 3rd. No, he came down on the 28th. We're supposed to come here on the 30th to play the simulator over the country club and drink beers and have fun. Get through New Year's, he finally comes up. His son comes down with it on like the 2nd. 6-year-old first grader, not a single symptom. But they had to test him because dad was positive. Brennan hasn't had a single symptom the entire time. And the school told him he wasn't allowed to come back until the 18th. And all of this, the county puts out a notification that quarantine is now only 5 days. So Libby calls the school and she's like, he's coming to school tomorrow. It's been 7 days. Like, this is ridiculous. Well, ma'am, we're not really sure what the rules are. She goes, your school district just sent me something from the state that said 5 days.
Yeah.
We're going on 6 days. There's no way I'm keeping him home until the 18th. This little boy needs to be in school.
Yeah.
Right.
As of Tuesday, and there's not sure when they're gonna get back. And I was rude to the receptionist yesterday when I made the doctor's appointment, and she's telling me this shit. And I said, for a fucking cold, because that's what the new symptoms are cold symptoms. I said, for a fucking cold. She didn't like that, but I don't care.
Yeah, the one thing that I've been making a point to try to do, the people that make the decisions get no mercy. Like I'm not going to sit there and let them lie to me or try to belittle me and my family. The people that are held hostage by the decision makers, just work with me.
Yeah.
Right. I know you didn't make the rule, but you need to have some common sense as we're going through this.
Yeah.
Some things are out of your control and some things you can absolutely take control over. Matt, have you seen Harold's disc profile?
No.
You think it would help us if we showed Matt what we're working with?
Sure.
I do, because I think once you see this, you're going to like him even more. Morning, Nicole. All right. So, Matt, this is Harold. Notice what he has 0 of. I or S.
0. Yeah.
I mean, he's got a little s, but 0 I.
Right.
Look where he dominates and where he wants to be.
C.
75% C, 15% D, 10% S. So when we talk about communication, attention to detail, detail, with enough 15 in the D to be assertive and to not let contractors shit on him or homeowners push him around, and enough S to actually not be a dick about it.
Right.
This is the robotic mechanic detail guy. Again, everyone's different, but this is his preferred communication style.
Right.
Look where he thinks he needs to be. He wants to be 100% D.
Yeah.
I think he's a leader and an asset that is going to flourish inside your organization. Thank God he's not another 95% deal like you and Alex, or we just get nothing done. All right. So let me get rid of this and get back to the matter at hand. All right, which screen am I sharing? Matt, which screen are you seeing?
A white screen with black sides. I don't know what it is.
Oh, there it is. This whole double monitor thing, I'm not perfect at, but I'm getting there.
Oh, I see you.
No, that's no fun. All right, let's get right into it today. So when we were here last time, we really broke through pain, right? What's the reason why we're here? What's the want? The want, the want, the want. No pain, no sale. You've heard us say it over and over and over again, same rule, no pain, no sale. And then when we go through the pain, it's not just the what, the why, and the how. So Matt, the 3 levels of pain, remember, the what they bring you is going to be the problem they have. We need to figure out why the pain they have is happening. So again, with you guys, they want a new kitchen. Why? Is it an upcoming event? Is it a grandparent moving in? Is it aged? Is it out of date? Is it out of code? Is it out of service? What is it? And then the why is really that emotional reason, how it's going to hit them personally, how it's going to impact them. So the what, the why, and the how is the pain, and that's where we need to be with our questioning. Remember, we talked about the 4 pain elements: pain in the present, pain in the future, pleasure in the present, pleasure in the future. With what you guys do with homes, it's going to be emotional. There's going to be something, remember, it's not a house, it's a home. There's going to be something emotional in there. We need to understand where it's going to be. Pain in the present, pain in the future, pleasure in the present, pleasure in the future. The way that we do that is we got to make sure that we go through the what, the surface problem, the why, and then the how. You guys remember this? The pain funnel. This is the first set of questioning strategies. We're going to get deeper into questioning strategies today, but this is kind of stuff that, again, I memorize it. This is kind of stuff that I also, in addition to memorizing it, I have it printed and on my desktop. Tell me more. Can you be more specific? Give me an example. How long has that been a problem? What have you tried to do about it? Did that work? How much do you think this has cost you? How do you feel about that? Have you given up and trying to deal with the problem? In your guys' pain funnel, there's going to be a little bit softer versions of this. How much has this cost you? I don't know if that's realistic. Unless we're talking something about appliances or solar, I don't think that they're looking at the energy of how much this has cost them. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, I remember a family that 2 of my good friends, they had their kitchen redone and they had to fire the original contractor because he just wasn't communicating and taking forever. And when they told me how much they were spending per month in carry out because they didn't have a kitchen that worked and they couldn't prepare even hot water in their kitchen,
right?
The amount of money they were spending on carry out blew. I mean, it was a mortgage payment they were spending on carry out.
That blows my mind. It's costing that contractor even more than what they're spending on carry out for him not getting the job done.
Yeah.
Yep. So Matt, if I asked you to read through these, you're comfortable going through these? Tell me more. What have you tried to do? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as pain funnel, pain questions, we love our Sandler rules. Stop selling features and benefits. And we've talked about this. Nobody cares about how long you've been in business, how many jobs you've done, what appliances you use, brand of cabinets. They want to know if you're the right contractor, if you're the right partner, if you can solve for their pain.
Right.
If the competition is doing it, stop it right away, do something else. Don't be your competitors, because they go in there and they try to overwhelm them with the same terms that you got. We're a licensed insured builder and we're a member of the HBA. And who gives a shit? Can I do your project? No paint, no sale. They have to want something. The paint is the emotional part of it. If they don't want it, don't even try to sell it to them.
Yeah.
The problem the prospect brings you is never the real problem. How long have I talked about my carpet? The problem wasn't that the carpet had stains. The problem was that Anne Marie hated the carpet. Happy wife, happy life. People buy emotionally, they make decisions intellectually. I knew if I got Anne Marie that bill of sale that said, honey, we're getting new carpet, I didn't care what the final number on it was. If they would have quoted me 10 grand and it came in at 10.5 because of shipping labor, doesn't matter. I was moving forward. Now,
Right.
I'm an I. I'm an IS. If I was a C, that might be a problem. So got to make sure that the emotional part of this, a C is still engaged. Don't forget the term. And this goes back to Randy's Eli of Troy menswear. What else? Whatever they bring you will be the main pain. Don't hesitate to ask what else. Because this will help you do a couple of things. It'll review the pain with them. It'll give you a chance to stop and say, okay, this is everything that you want. That's everything we've covered. That's all we're talking about. But how many times have you guys been on a job site and they go, oh, while you're here, can you take a look at this real quick? Oh, we were wondering if you could include this. Oh, you're painting the kitchen. Well, this hallway could use a fresh coat too, right? Always the what else. Ask the what else, especially in your business. People think once they got you out there, now you're their handyman.
Yeah.
And if we can get that what else on the table, we can quote it. We can charge them for it. We can set the expectation. Nothing's going to blow up in our face. Or we don't get to the 4% design deposit comes down and they go, yeah, well, we were really hoping for a wine fridge. Like, you got to tell us that shit now. So the what else, the what else, the what else.
Yep.
Summarize it. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I just had a project that we're going into contract here. That when Kurt and I originally talked about the project, they had a $50,000 budget to work on their kitchen, and we're selling it for 110 because of stuff I talked to them about adding throughout the design process.
An extra 50. Nice work, bud.
It's more like an extra 55 to 60. So yeah, more than doubled what they wanted to spend.
Well, are you solving for their pain?
Yeah,
Well, there you go. And they had budget.
they were able to increase it.
There you go. All right, so I think this works. All right, I can hear you. Kirk can hear you. We're gonna keep going. All right, so let's get into questioning strategies. As we've uncovered their pain, we have to go deeper into their pain. Remember that initial conversation, that upfront contract to get us from the phone call to understand what their pain is and if we should even have a meeting, into the actual formal walkthrough of the house, the true meeting where we can actually start talking budget decision making. We need to be able to have questioning strategies within budget and decision making. Now we've talked about pain. So 5 things: the dummy curve, learning to ask questions, rules for reversing, softening statements, and unasked questions. A couple big things that I want to point out here. The dummy curve. We know the answers to most of their questions, right? They've given us a question. We know the answer. We know the answer probably halfway before the words are coming out of their mouth. Will we have to pull permits? Will we need to, get a construction? Like, the answers. Don't answer the questions. Ask more questions. Find out why. God bless you, Matt.
Thank you.
So let's get into this. Morning, Nicole.
Was I? I'm sorry. I was dealing with something else. Good morning.
It's all right. So I'm going to do this. I'll keep it on me so you can see me.
Yeah, keep it on you now.
Nicole, we have new toys in Lansing.
Oh, yeah?
Sound bars and podiums, and Kurt's getting up to get a coffee, but
Nice.
swap the camera. We
I
can
don't
now
know that-
show you where he's sitting.
Let's see.
He's getting a coffee. You're gonna have to give it a minute when he comes back. But there's his iPad and his coffee cup.
Wait, what is there?
So I now have two cameras here. There's a camera that faces the audience. So if
Okay,
I'm doing a hybrid meeting, you can see the participants. And I now have a camera on my laptop. Well, I've always had a camera on my laptop that faces back at me. Oh, wait, that's speaker. I want video. There we go. So in the hybrid world, we can kind of do both.
that's great. I'm gonna have to get something like that set up.
Well, are you gonna be training people in your living room?
No, as you can see, I'm not properly set up for that right now.
No worries.
No,
But when
I
you
won't.
are in Michigan and you want to do trainings with us,
Yeah,
we have the capability in both offices to do both.
which is great. I don't know that I'll ever get up to the Lansing one. Unless there's a time you and I can make a reason to be up there for some tailgating and a football game and do some training on the side, but yeah,
You're not gonna get me to fight you on tailgating.
it's been too long. Usually I'm up there at least once a season, and it's been a couple of years now with all the craziness in the world.
If you're not drinking.
It's only for 90 days.
Do we
Yeah, did you
have,
hear that? I stopped drinking for 90 days. I gotta get down to my my bikini body for our spring break trip.
that's a good goal. It is a good goal.
Hey, I'm down 10 already since the second, not the first. I was hungover as hell on the first and ate like garbage.
Are you serious? You're down 10 pounds from not drinking? That's the biggest difference you've made?
No carbs too.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, it goes a long way. So, all right, Kurt's coffee, I can hear it gurgling and we'll get jumped into this. All right, so dummy curve. Dummy curve is how we address clients and how we avoid the problem of doing the majority of the talking. You've heard me say things, saying the rules, a prospect that's listening isn't a prospect. You want to listen 70% of the time, talk 30% of the time. And so the more that we shut up and we learn what they have to say, it does several things. By active listening, paying attention to what they have to say, we're getting them to give us more information. They're going to share more about pain. They're going to share more about their budget. They're going to share more about their decision-making process. Not only that, they're going to build rapport with us. Think about like when you were, a teenager and they said, oh, you want to meet a girl? Sure, you're interested. Just ask her a lot of questions, listen to her. Chicks love that, right? Well, so do clients. We all want to be heard and understood. And if we are asking questions and we're letting them talk and they get to share their information, they trust us. We're the ones that really care compared to the competition that's just trying to sell them shit. So 3 phases of the dummy curve: dummy phase, amateur phase, professional phase. Again, dummy phase. When you first got into this business and you didn't have all the answers and somebody asked you a question, you didn't want to be wrong. So you asked them why they wanted to know that. You ran off to somebody that did know, you found the answer, and then you brought it back to make sure you were right. And by not knowing the answer and asking more questions, you got to understand more about what they did. As you figure stuff out, now you get into the amateur phase. This is where you're talking a lot more than you're listening because you think you know everything. Or now you've broken through that I'm a rookie phase, and now you want to prove to people how smart you are and how much you know. We all did it. It's okay. I'm not picking on anybody. But this amateur phase, you tend to be thinking of the answer as they're asking the question because you finally know the answer and it's fresh and it's new. The problem with that is if we are answering their questions as they're coming out of their mouth, we're not listening, we're not asking deeper questions. So what we really want to do is get into that professional phase. When we're in the professional phase, we tend to ask much better questions. We're doing it on purpose. This allows the prospect to do that 70-30. The prospect is talking 70% of the time. The prospect is listening only 30% of the time. If they're going to ask you questions that you know the answer to, ask more questions and dummy up. When do you think I can get my project started by? You know what? That's a really good question. Is there something coming up that's going to be a landmark that we need to be conscious of? Well, no, I just know it's winter and I don't want a bunch of mud tracked through my house. No problem. We're probably about 8 weeks out from getting this done. Heck, Matt's design is going to take 6 weeks on its own. What else can I answer for you? Any other timing questions, right? You know, right offhand, if they say, when can we start this project? You could answer, well, Matt's going to take 6 weeks for design. Then we got 2 projects in front of you. Alex can probably be out here May 1st. No, stop and ask the why. Why is that important? Because then you're going to find out, well, we've got a big trip coming up. We don't want it to start when we're on vacation for spring break. Well, you know, I've got a big bonus coming up end of the quarter, and I was hoping to use some of that money for it. They're going to start giving you answers to budget and pain questions if you go into that professional phase and ask more questions. So, Matt, as this is very important to your end of the bargain, when they're going to ask you questions about the types of appliances, the colors, the cost, the materials, this kind of stuff, you have an encyclopedic knowledge of the answers to this stuff because you've been doing it long and you're good at it. Let's not be the smartest guy in the room. Break down, back up, ask them more questions. So there's a lot of dummy phrases that we use. And by dummy phrases, I mean just that. Phrases that might not seem common. Matt, if I copied and pasted these to you, would you print them off or put them somewhere where you could take a look at them before you walked into a meeting with a client?
I'd put them somewhere where I look at them. Yeah. If I printed them off, I'd probably never see them.
Okay. That's right. You're kind of paperless.
Make them the background of my iPad or something.
There you go.
Good
Read
idea.
through them for me.
Hey, Matt, so you're in construction. That's the business that you're in?
Yeah, along with Kurt, who's in the office there with Chris.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you probably get a lot of questions, or I shouldn't make assumptions, but do you find that you have clients that are always trying to sort of add up in their head what they think is totaling up to the prices you're giving them?
Every time.
Every time. This is where this really starts to become the biggest benefit in the conversation. When I'm not working with smart guys like Chris, I'm a partner in a lawn care business, and we deal with the same thing. So these questions have been a game changer there, because you really start to understand why are they asking all this? And yeah, price is important, but there's always another thing that's pushing them to ask.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just changed the direction of how we're able to price and then not have an argument about it on the back end. It's been pretty helpful.
Right.
So Nicole, perfect example, but in Matt and Kurt's world, this is where the dummy curve really helps us dig deeper into why they're asking that question. So Matt, read through those one at a time and just make sure you have no questions about what some of these examples are or when you could actually use them.
Which ones am I reading through?
Oh, I'm probably sharing not
Yeah,
the
I
right
just see the
thing.
dummy curve.
Stop share, and I need to go to share desktop because I moved another screen there. Kurt and I can see fine.
Well, maybe if some dummy actually drove across Lansing like he was supposed to, I'd have seen fine too.
Yeah. How about now? Can you see that workbook?
Yes.
Read through those. Do any of those seem like something you would be uncomfortable saying if they said, well, Matt, tell me, should we look at new appliances as well?
Do you want me to read them out loud right now?
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot.
So you just want to read what you have? You want me to put it in context? I'm sorry. I'm missing.
Just read them out loud.
Did you mean tell me more about, help me, I don't understand, I don't suppose, I don't remember, let's review. Did we discuss? Oh, I'm confused. What? Let me see if I have this straight.
Okay. These are there, Matt, so that we don't launch right into the amateur phase.
Right.
These are there so that we pause mentally and remind ourselves, hold on, this is the dummy curve. This is the chance for me to get more clarifying questions.
Right.
So if somebody asks you questions like, geez, Matt, do you think that this kitchen's gonna be wide enough for a wheelchair? Right?
Right.
You can look at them and go, yeah, absolutely. I mean, typical wheelchair is what, 36 inches wide? This clearing here is gonna be that, plus we got a ramp. Stop, huh? I'm confused. Is there a need for wheelchair accessibility right now? Well, no, but grandma's getting up there in age. We're just wondering. All right, there we go.
Right.
Now we can dig deeper into the pain. So this
Exactly.
dummy curve stuff can be very, very, very valuable. This is another one of those that I used to have as a cheat sheet on my desk to remind myself to stop just going, yes, well, foundations training is 10 weeks long and it's classroom, right?
Right.
Because if you hear somebody say something like, does this kitchen do, or will this kitchen, or does this appliance, or, you know, anything that does this product, does this project, does this service, if they ask a specific, like, does this or does it not do that? If it's a simple yes or no question, use the dummy curve.
Right.
Well, you know, this is good in pricing as well. Wow, this seems a lot more expensive than I thought it would be. Rather than just starting in with, well, the cost of materials are significantly higher with supply chain issues, you know, typical sheet of plywood that I used to be paying this for, I'm now paying this for. They don't care.
Right.
Seems a lot higher. Wow. Why does it seem higher? What did you think the proper budget would be? Again, when can we start? How long will this take? Questions like that. Dummy up. You already know the answer, right? Matt, you know how long a design is going to take. Hey,
Right.
Matt, if we put this 4% down, how long is design going to take you? What's the answer?
8 to 10 weeks.
Right? That's what an amateur would do. If I asked
Right.
you, hey, Matt, you know, I gave Kurt that check for 4%. How long is this design going to take you?
Why is that important? Is there something going on that you're trying to hit a deadline for, or is there a certain constraint you have to get the project started within?
Yeah. Matt, here's the coaching part of this. Be a little softer with it.
Sure.
Because if I say, hey, Matt, how long is this going to take? And you go, why is that important? I'm like, because I want to know.
I don't think I'd actually do that, but
Right? So-
right,
You're fired.
right. I'd fire me
But
too.
if we go back to, hey, Matt, how long does design take? And you respond, you know, that's a really good question. I get asked that on every project. Every project's a little bit different, but what's coming up in your future? You know, what do you need to make sure I'm aware of as I'm trying to put this together as quick as possible
Right.
for you? Because they might just want to say, I just want to know. All right, and that's fine. I would say
Right.
sometimes it takes between 10 weeks and 12 weeks, but I just wanted to make sure there was no landmark things coming up in your world that we had to keep on the calendar.
Exactly.
So any of these dummy phrases that we've talked about, I think I have a whole list of them here in this PowerPoint. Yeah. So if they say, does your product, or we have a problem with, or we don't like, you know, Kurt, this is a great one for you. Well, you know, the last contractor just communicated like shit. Never knew what was going on with the project. Rather than saying, well, we use Co-Construct and, you know, we now have Harold and he's doing it. Wow, that sounds like a real problem. Tell me more about that. How did that affect you and what did that mean to the project? Let them dig deeper into it. This comes back to that one woman. My husband hates contractors. We could have said, well, your husband's a dick, fuck him. Or, well, why? What's going on? Oh, well, he's in the business himself. Okay. When can we start? So these dummy phrases, tell me more, help me learn why.
Right.
You know, Matt, this is the place, and Kurt too. That's a really good question. Help me understand a little bit more. Well, why are you asking that? Right? Because then they're going to actually tell you. They're going to dig deeper into it. Everyone's heard Nancy in the seagulls picture, right? Don't paint seagulls in their picture.
Yeah.
Don't try to sell them something that they're not interested in. Sell today, educate tomorrow.
One of my favorite terms.
Sell today, educate tomorrow.
No, the don't paint seagulls. And it's one of those things that every time you share it with somebody, they go, yeah. It doesn't
Right.
feel good. Yeah.
In the whole thing about painting seagulls in their picture, Matt, part of your job as a designer, Kurt, part of your job as a builder is to help them understand what options might be available, to help them understand what everything, styles, designs, colors, cabinets, everything. But this is the upselling part. This is trying to tell them stuff that they need that they don't really need, giving them stuff that's not going to solve their pain.
Right.
I mean, there's some of this common sense stuff. If you go through the project and go, you really need lighting in here. Like
Right.
that's not painting seagulls. They're not vampires. They're going to need lighting. So make sure that we're not leaving important things on the table, but at the same time, painting seagulls in their picture is trying to upsell them into a bay window or a deck off the kitchen, or they might
Right.
get there, but let's not try to sell that to them or tell them what they need. Because I'm sure that, and I'm saying this specifically to David, who's not on the call, and to you guys. By the time you talk to them, they've already done how much internet research on floor plans, layouts, designs, school districts, lots of, they are coming prepared with probably more knowledge than they need, and probably not enough knowledge to be an expert, but enough to be dangerous and a pain in the ass. So it's their picture. Let them paint it for you. And as they paint it for you, we can then start actually crafting around their paint and what we're looking for.
Usually
Dummy
I'm
up.
trying to paint over the seagulls that they painted for themselves. Because I find that clients try and do that more than I do. They usually come up with a bunch of shit they don't need that will never fit into the budget that they have. And I usually actively trying to convince them out of stuff they don't need. A great example of that was there was a client that we did a front porch for, and they were convinced they wanted to replace the railing on it. The porch was only like a foot off the ground. And I showed them a bunch of pictures and convinced them. I asked them why they needed railing. And their only answer was, well, we had it before. And I showed them how they could have a front porch, a beautiful front porch, that composite, achieve more goals than they thought they could before. And just not put up railing again and have a nice big open front porch. And that's what they ended up doing. They were thrilled, and they were just couldn't believe they didn't think about that. They had railing before, so like, we just need railing again. They had no pain behind it. So
Perfect example, Matt. If they would have said we need a railing, you would have answered, yeah, it's about this much a square foot, and this is the brand we use. You would have been stuck there.
yeah. And I started there, don't be wrong. It took me a minute to think about that, but I just dawned on me. I'm like, these people don't need railing. You know what I mean? So we had to do some work so they didn't need railing. So there's a little bit more to it, but still.
There you go. But that's
digging deeper to figure that out.
That's the professional stage rather than the amateur stage.
You probably dummy curved without even knowing it. He probably asked questions like, or Matt, maybe you ask questions like, well, why do you think you need railing? Tell me more about that. You probably did it and didn't even realize you did it.
I think that's exactly kind of how that went down. They started talking about their garden, realizing that they wanted to rip out their entire garden, and then we ended up bringing up the grade around the entire porch because there's only one side that really would have required railing, and we fixed that, and then they didn't really need it. And then they saw a bunch of pictures they liked without railing and realized there was really no reason to have it. So
yeah, I mean, it's all exactly what you did, even though you didn't realize you were doing it.
Right.
All right, I'm turning the volume way up. This might blow you up, Kurt. Give me a second. All right.
We can hear you pretty good. Are you turning your voice up?
Yeah, the speaker inside Zoom was turned way down. So the external speaker was turned way down. I got it now. All right, so this is specifically for Matt and Kurt. No buzzwords, no acronyms, nothing that you guys use in your terms that might confuse them. Describe to me what a GFI plug is. If you were talking to my 11-year-old son, Gannon, what's a GFI plug?
You asking me or Matt?
I'm asking you.
It's a ground fault plug, so that way if there's water or any other interruption in the circuit in the kitchen, that's going to break before the breaker down in the panel is going to break.
Perfect.
And then you can just reset it by hitting a button. Or if there's an overload on that circuit, that plug will blow right there and show it to them, and instead of the breaker down in the panel.
Perfect. Reason why I asked this, Gannon's Cub Scout group, we went to Robertson Brothers Homes, has got a new development in Bloomfield Hills, and my buddy Tim, one of the Cub Scout dads, is their land acquisition and development guy. So he got, dude, Bloomfield Hills Homes is fucking stupid. Nicole, do you remember where the old Hickory Grove Elementary was on Lasser, just south of Square Lake?
I didn't spend a whole lot of time over there, but I know the general area. Yeah.
Okay. So Bloomfield Schools shut down Hickory Grove Elementary and sold it. And they sold it to my buddy Tim. He's got 40 lots there. They built the model, 2,700 square foot ranch, finished basement with a walkout. Saying that again, 2,700 square foot ranch, finished basement and a walkout. It's a condo, so they don't own the land. Keep going. $1.9 fucking million.
No, when was this?
8 weeks ago.
Holy cow.
The family is a cash buyer that basically walked in off the street and said, my mom's getting old. I don't have 2 years to wait for a new home for her, and I don't need something with 2 stories, but she's got to stay close to us and the grandkids. We'll take the model. He said, it's not for sale. So everything's for sale. We'll take the model. It was, well, I mean, if you buy it, we have to build another model. We can't not have a model for these 40 homes. And actually, they only have 11 left. So if we sold it to you, you couldn't take occupancy for 6 months. So that's fine. 1.9 million for a 2,700 square foot ranch. Right? So the point of why I bring that up is when we were doing this walkthrough with the Cub Scouts, one of the kids said, what's those buttons on the plug? And my buddy Joe, who's former Army guy, dad, said, well, so this is so you don't electrocute yourself because it's right next to water. Because it's called a GFI plug. He goes, and I don't even know what GFI stands for, but I just know that if I'm cooking or something in the kitchen and one of those appliances gets wet, it's going to kill it so that I don't shock myself, electrocute myself. Or if I plug in the toaster and the air fryer and a bunch of other stuff, it'll break here so I don't have to run down to the basement.
Ground fault interrupter.
Ground fault interrupter. But Matt, if you say to somebody, well, there's gonna be a couple more bucks on this because we got to have GFIs in the entire kitchen, they're going to go, oh, okay. Honey, what's a GFI? Right? You know terms in your industry that you and Matt and Alex probably use on a regular basis. Don't use the buzzwords. Talk to them as if they're 4 years old. Talk to them as if they're an 11-year-old Cub Scout on a job site. Okay.
Right. Yeah, there's some of those are tough to remember. I try and speak as plainly as possible, but like the GFI is a good example because it's so easy to want to say that because most people recognize one of those and know what it is, but there probably are a lot of people that don't.
Hey, I'm guilty of it myself. Nicole
Right.
knows that Erica and I both used to work at Quicken Loans. We used to do a lot of mortgages.
Right.
Anne-Marie and I are refinancing our house right now. And so my buddy Velco that's doing the loan for us, we're copying Anne-Marie on emails. And he and I are using terms like the HUD or the LTV. Why the hell do I need an appraisal? My LTV is below 50. Well,
Right.
because of the current underwriting, we're going to have to take a look at the appraisal. If I can get the LTV below 45, you won't take the hits and the points for the debt to like we're
Right.
using DTI, LTV, HUD, all this stuff. And I finally had to say, Anne-Marie, I'll explain this all to you when I get home. Velco and I are just going to work through all the details. You're being copied on it because you're on the original email, but don't worry, I'll explain it all to you. Because as soon as I told her what a debt to income ratio was, they look at how much money we make and how much is on our credit report. She laughed. She's like, both cars are paid off. We don't need a credit card debt. So they're going to say we can't afford the mortgage on our loan. Like that's what they're looking at. And the LTV,
Right.
You know, the Labruzzi's just sold for 620. We bought for 285. We got to make sure that we are less than 50% the value of the home. That's the loan to value. She
Right.
goes, Jesus, I hope they don't say 620. Can you imagine the taxes on that? Right. As I explained it to her in non-buzzwords, she was now not overwhelmed or not feeling a part of the conversation. So no buzzwords. When you are doing your dummy curve, be professional, ask the right questions. And if they use buzzwords, make sure that you understand what they're saying too. Because I have this with clients all the time that deal in technology, and they say stuff like, if you're going to look at the RAM on that machine, you're going to want to make sure that you've got at least, 2.6 megahertz of it. Hey guys, your clients don't care about RAM, megahertz, bits, gigs, right? Talk to them in terms like storage. Talk to them in terms in like processor speed. They don't want to know
Right.
pixels. They want to know, latest and greatest. So there's a part of that, going back to stay on the rules, don't spill your candy in the lobby. Don't be the show up and throw up guy.
Like that.
Don't just start bitching and pitching features and benefits. Don't paint seagulls in their picture. And then here's something that I have to frequently remind people that are new into an industry. I'm not saying this to blow smoke because it's the truth. You guys know this business really, really well, right? You know the trades, the municipalities, the legal aspect, the financial aspect of it, the materials, the projects, everything front to back. But if there's something new that's coming out, somebody wants you to do a new garage with a freaking electric charger for their Tesla. You guys got to understand the product or service before you can sell it. Dig deeper into it. A lot of the companies that I work with that have hired new people specifically in tech, they can't just come to sales training and be successful. They have to have intimate knowledge of the products and services they're selling. Now, again, Nicole, as you're sitting here, the more that you go through Sandler, the easier it'll be for you to sell Sandler. The more that you see us coach, the easier it'll be for you to coach. Now, like I said, Matt, Kurt, your time in the business, I don't have to tell you to learn about what you do and why you sell it. But I would encourage, as we talk with Harold as he's moving forward, let's make sure that he's construction savvy. So there we go. Your value as a sales professional and ultimately the amount of your commissions is determined more by the amount of information you gather than by the amount of information you dispense. That's what our competition does. Show up and throw up features and benefits. They don't understand what the challenges are. Second part, no mind reading. Matt, if you have a question, ask it. Kurt, if you have a question, ask it. You might think that certain features and benefits would help you close a sale if your prospect only knew what the features and benefits were. That's what we've traditionally been taught. Try to overwhelm them with the value, the features, the benefits. That's the mistake. Dummy up and ask the questions.
Yeah, instead of the features and benefits, we try to concentrate on our process more than the features and benefits.
And I would forewarn this, the process being so good could be a benefit. You could be selling them on the process rather than answering their pain questions. So here's why. Three reasons why we use the dummy curve. No unpaid consulting. If you're answering questions prematurely, you're providing unpaid consulting.
Yep. And we've had people ask us to do drawings prior to going into design, and I say, absolutely not.
Yep.
And they say, why? And I say, because they don't understand the amount of time that it takes for Matt to draw something. But I can't visualize it. And instead of asking a question, I go straight to, we will help you visualize that.
Yeah. It's the unpaid consulting that they are looking for when they ask questions like, what would this look like on paper? How much is it? Like, we don't know yet. We need to know why you're asking that question. And the other thing is, if you answer a question that they're maybe being divisive about, like, I don't remember if it was an Eric example or not, but it was something like, hey, does this come in red? And you're like, oh, absolutely it comes in red. I got one on the lot. My ex-wife's favorite color is red. I fucking hate red. That kind of thing. Like, you don't know why they're asking a question. Sometimes it's with pure intention. Sometimes they're trying to get free consulting. Sometimes you got to find out before you answer it because it could be something that is negative. Like, does this come only in an automatic or does it also come in a stick shift? Or is this transmission? I don't know. Sometimes you're going to want to know why they're answering a question. It goes back to the thing about a lawyer. Lawyer never asks a question he doesn't know the answer to, or shouldn't ask that question. You're not going to want to answer a question without knowing why they're asking it, especially if it seems really out of left field. So if you answer questions before you ask the follow-up questions, unpaid consulting. And that unpaid consulting could be too much information that kills the deal at the start. Second reason, you need to gather the information, right? The more info you have, the better you're prepared you're going to be to actually do the design, do the quote, do everything else. So you need to know as much of their information as possible. And you want to know the why and these questioning strategies in the dummy curve doesn't get you just the what, but the why and the how. Last thing, dealing with the correct issues. People buy emotionally and they justify their decisions intellectually. Matt, you've heard me say that before,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
So if people ask you a question, you have to ask why they're asking that question, because you're going to get the emotional reason why they're asking it, and then maybe even the intellectual decision behind why they're asking it. If you're asking and you're dealing with these questions up front, you're focusing on the prospect's issues and not your product knowledge. Let me say it again. By dealing with the correct issues, you're focusing on what they want to know and why they want to know it, not on what you can deliver.
Right.
Saying the rule, sell today, educate tomorrow. If something that you are putting in there is a really cool feature, really cool benefit, something you can't wait to show them in design, do it in design. Get their 4% first before you start trying to wow them with stuff, right?
Right.
Say you've got, who knows, a new material that's easier to clean, a new material that's sanitary, a new appliance that's got a computer and a bell and a whistle or automatic cocktail dispenser. Don't try to overwhelm them, right? Get the deposit today and then sell it to them and educate them on it tomorrow. Cool?
100%.
All right, reversing strategies. This comes back to the dummy curve and how we actually answer questions with questions. Because a big part of this, we got to make sure is that we're learning to ask questions without being robotic. Again, I talk about my inner circle, Collins's, Koval's, and Bakers. Mike Koval, CEO of RAM. Every question you ask him, he's a robot. That's a really good question. I don't know why. You could ask him like, hey man, you want a beer? That's a really good question. Do you have blue light? Like, dude, just stop being the robot.
Yeah.
His kids say that, Daddy, can we have ice cream? That's a really good question. Why do you want ice cream? Like, Koval, just stop, right? But that's what he does. And that's okay. So learn to ask questions the right way. When reversing a prospect, redefine his question back to them and try to reverse it 3 times to really get to why they're asking the question. Your value as a sales professional and ultimately the amount of your commission is determined more by the amount of information you gather than by the amount of information you give. Kurt, why do we ask all these questions when we're talking pain and budget? What are pain, budget, and decision-making? These are what in the submarine?
They're closer to a yes.
Qualifying versus disqualifying. If they ask a question and you can actually figure out why they're asking the question, it might be a huge red flag for why we don't want to work with them. It might be a huge red flag that they don't have the money yet.
Yeah,
Could be a huge red flag that there's more decision makers involved.
yeah. We've got a client right now, we don't have her in design, and there's a couple of red flags that are coming up that we might disqualify her.
Yeah. Save the headaches.
Yeah.
So qualifying and disqualifying is accomplished by collecting information.
Mhm.
Matt, we can disqualify them and collecting the right information. You will save valuable time by qualifying or disqualifying and not get the headaches that come associated with it. So think about this when we were kids. We talk about our talk tracks when we're kids.
Yep.
Don't talk to,
Strangers
right? Don't speak unless,
spoken to.
right? Forget that shit. Because we were also told to stop asking so many questions. My daughter Harper, a little brilliant smartass, will ask a million questions, and she's been saying this since she was about 6. Harper, why do you have so many questions? Because I'm a curious child. Now her brother and her sister say it too. And again, they ask a million questions, which I'm happy about. They're curious children, but we can't take that as don't speak unless spoken to or stop asking so many questions.
Yeah.
Chris, are you
Okay.
reversing them?
I'm what?
Are you negative reversing your kids?
I've been doing that a lot lately. especially Harper, and she's catching on to it. She's smarter than I am.
Well, the beautiful thing is the first time you see your kid do it to somebody else.
Right?
Yeah, my niece, Eric's oldest, Ava, she'll do it. It's pretty funny.
Of course she will. That kid talks in Sandler.
Yeah, and she's 10. Yep.
Is Eric getting his haircut yet?
Yeah. I mean, Nicole, you've seen it. It's shorter, but it's still pretty long compared to his headshot.
I didn't hear, was the question about Eric's hair?
Yeah, did he get it cut yet?
Chris officially has the best flow in the office. That's what we
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, remember, we didn't get into sales to make friends.
Make money.
We got into sales to make money. And asking these questions, we're not looking for acceptance or approval. We're looking for information.
Yep.
So if you need approval or acceptance, go somewhere else,
Yep.
right? We want them to get away from lie, steal, lie, hide. We want them to share information with us. We're going to lead the dance. So where does this say? Let's not forget the prospect's part in the process according to his rules of engagement with the salesperson. Get all the information I can and commit to nothing. So now that I have all the information, I'm comfortable asking for this information from the salespeople. The salespeople will give me all the answers I want, and I can take it and shop it around. Okay? No mind reading. Matt, no assumptions. If the prospect asks a question, ask them why. It's a good question. Why do you care? That's a good question. Why'd you ask that? I'm sure there's a reason you asked that question. Can you tell me more? How about the importance of a question? Matt, get back to the railing. Well, we really need a railing. You know, I'm sure you want a railing for any reason. Can you tell me why? We've always had one. I might be able to save you some money on the project if you don't have one. How important is having a railing to you? Is it a safety issue? Is it aesthetics? Well, it's not really that important. We just always had one. Okay. Don't forget to ask the why, the underlying intent of why they asked that question, and then the importance of it. Again, if you say I want something that's got great gas mileage and I want something that is really fast, we need to find out why. Which is more important, the fuel economy or the speed? Because I can get you a Dodge Hellcat that is the fastest production car in the world and it gets 6 miles to the gallon. Or I can get you a Dodge Charger, which still has 350 horsepower, as fast as hell, but you're gonna get about 15. 15 is better than 6. What's your priority, right?
Some
Could-
Dodge Ram. Or a Ram.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Just a Ram. Or like when my buddy Koval takes the TRX up north when we go on vacation, he doesn't have to stop for gas on the way up, but he's coming into town on fumes and he's got to pay that racing fuel for it, which is like $4.50 a gallon.
And that thing probably gets 10 miles a gallon fast.
And the way he drives it, even less than that.
Yeah.
Which I don't have a lot of sympathy for him because he has to
No.
pay for his own gas when he goes on vacation. But he's driving $100,000 truck that doesn't have a car payment on it.
Yeah, if you have
Or
that
insurance.
if you have that truck and you're bitching about gas mileage, then yeah,
You're in the
Yep.
wrong truck.
right.
Yeah.
Better than my employees asking me if we can get one of them. Matt, you have to remind me the brand, but the one that can crawl or go sideways or whatever.
All the new Hummers.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. No.
Those are kind of cool. Those are electric though. So you have a
Yeah.
great gas
I'm out.
mileage with those.
The yeah, it's funny when he kind of bitches about it. We just kind of roll our eyes and go, sure. But he's gotten to do a lot of fun stuff. He's working with Zach Brown right now on some commercial stuff. He's got Dave Grohl on the hopper, Chris Stapleton. I mean, Ted Nugent tried to get a vehicle from him. He's like, Deadly Tedley, we'll take this down to Texas and I will be. And he's like, we already gave you a couple of Hellcats. Like, TRX is selling itself. We don't need Ted Nugent behind it.
I would
But
take either
Ted
one of those
Nugent-
cars.
Ted Nugent's text message to him read exactly like you would expect Ted Nugent to sound like in a text message. And I'll be whacking antelope. But yeah, okay, Ted. So, Matt, again, going back to this dummy curve, sometimes they are putting up smoke screens with these questions, and if you can reverse them and ask more questions, you can get through their smoke screen.
Yep.
It'll take you at least 2, usually 3 questions to get through their smoke screen. And normally their first 2 answers are data, are intellectual answers. It won't be
Right.
until the 3rd answer that they really start giving the emotional reason behind it. Remember when we talk about the 3 levels of pain, the what,
Yep.
the why, the how is the surface level, how it impacts the business or the family, and then how it impacts them personally. That
Right.
personally one, if we keep reversing up to 3 times, we'll get there.
I think that's the most important part, to make sure that our communication with them is allowing them to feel comfortable, putting the emotional want or need at the front of that conversation too.
Yeah. Can I put you guys on a spot and ask a question? Here, I'll do this fun part. I'll use the new camera. Stop share. When you finish an initial phone call, Kurt, there he is. Oh, you can't see you. When you finish an initial phone call and you go out there to meet with them, do you kind of do a post-call plan and say, I think this is their disc profile?
Yeah, I haven't thought about disc profiles specifically, but I've thought about, how they communicated to me, what my communication was back to them, and if they're gonna be the ideal client. And I can pick up when I'm talking to them, how I need to talk back to them,
Yeah.
whether it's quiet or, whatever the case may be. And once in a while, I do think about that. I can pick accountants out of a crowd in a heartbeat.
And engineers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's a couple of things to this questioning strategy, Matt, that I want to make sure I hammer home with you. If you are dealing with someone that's a C, a high C, if they ask a question and you reverse it, normally most people will rephrase it. And they'll ask the question again in a different way. So if I say to you, I
Right.
really like this, are there LED lights available? And you say, well, it sounds really important. Why were you thinking LED lights? And I say, well, I know they're more energy efficient. Okay, well, why are you concerned about energy efficiency? Well, my daughter's kind of a tree hugger and she was really pushed that we've got an environmental, like whatever. But if they ask the same question the exact same way twice, answer it. Now they will take it as combative, or that you're being evasive or dishonest.
Right.
So if they ask you something like, are you licensed and insured? And you go, well, that's a really good question. I'm sure you're asking that for a reason. Were you worried we weren't? Or was there a concern about it? And they say, are you licensed and insured? Answer the question, right? And I don't know if licensed and insured is something that comes up every single time, or bonded or whatever, but typically in the technology world, we run into more of those engineers or those accountants. If
Right.
it is a specific question that they've asked twice, the exact same way, just go ahead and answer it.
Right.
Because like I said, you will come off as evasive or even dishonest if you don't. Matt, have you ever had somebody that asked you the exact same question twice?
Probably. I think usually I've picked up really quick when somebody is that type of profile and they do want to just get to the point with that. We had a client that we're doing a kitchen remodel for right now, in addition, and he was very much that way. He would share no emotional thought or wants or needs, and he would be that same. I pictured him as soon as you said that. I don't remember specifically if he asked questions twice, but he was that type of guy that if you said something like that back to him, or if you said, why is that important to you or something, he would probably just say the same question again and stare at you. I'm sure Kurt probably knows who I'm talking about.
I'm drawing a blank, tell me.
It's Manzik.
Oh, yeah.
It's so much fun when you guys talk about old clients, because as soon as you guys say the name, you realize it's either like, oh, fuck yeah, or like, oh, like there's definitely some war stories in there.
Yeah, he's a decent client. He's just he's a computer
Eccentric.
guy, very
Yeah.
analytical. I would guess he's like a high C.
So-
So
Here's the bonus part of the program. When you're buying something, you will recognize these questioning strategies from somebody that's taken Sandler and is good at it. And if there's something that you're in the negotiation process with, so what's the monthly payment going to be on this? Well, that's a really good question. I'm going to have to run some numbers. Was there a number you were trying to keep it around? Well, I need to know the monthly payment first. Oh, okay. And did you have a certain budget in mind? You have the numbers. Can you just give me the monthly payment, please? Right? They know what the monthly payment is. They don't really have to run the numbers when it comes to something like a vehicle. So negotiating the other end, again, we know how tough sales is. And I'm not out there to abuse people or pick on them. But at the same time, I know that this works well in negotiations. Sometime have Eric tell the story about when he wanted to get his car, his lease on his Cadillac was up and he went to get another Cadillac and the prices were through the roof. So we went to an Audi dealership and as a gain, he put a number in his brain of where he wanted the monthly payment to be. And he got the guy there and it was criminal how much he took advantage of this guy. But he knew the questioning strategies, he knew the negotiation tactics, and he walked out of there with what should have been a $900 monthly payment for about $500. So it works. Matt, how many times we want to reverse to find the real question?
how many times?
3 times. The
Yeah.
first 2 are normally what answers?
The like intellectual answers or straight answers instead of emotional.
Intellectual in nature, data driven. The third one's
Yeah.
usually we're gonna get the emotional response.
Right.
And when reversed, a client will redefine their question. If they ask the same question twice the exact same way, answer.
Answer it.
All right, I'm gonna take the cameras back off of Kurt. Video. I'm gonna share this. All right. So remember, I mentioned my buddy. That's a great question on every single one. Here's some better ones. Kurt, read those out loud, please.
You must be telling me that for a reason, and you're pointing that out because. Why did you ask me that just now? When you say you're unhappy with our service, Bob, what does that mean? Is that a big concern for you? If we could provide that feature, what would be the next step? I get the feeling, if you were me, what would you do? Supposing I said, am I the only one feeling uncomfortable? We have a problem. Would you like to talk about it? Complete the sentence.
Complete the sentence. I don't think I'm ever going to see you saying to somebody. But stuff like, Kurt, is there going to be a dumpster in my driveway for the entire project? Is that a big concern for you? Well, yeah, I've got 3 teenage daughters that all have cars and my driveway is like the Indy 500 every day anyway. I was just worried about losing more parking space.
Yeah.
Because if you would have just responded and said, well, yeah, we're not going to know about the daughters and the issues. Okay. So that does sound like a big concern. Can we talk about what other options might be available? Make sure that we can maybe find something that works for you. Right? I get the feeling that you're asking that for a reason. Because you can always just do that's a really good question. I get the feeling you're asking me that for a reason. Why?
Yeah.
Right? Why did you ask me that just now? Nicole, that's one of those that Eric will use. Why'd you ask me that just now? I don't normally feel confident enough to push it back with him at that. Normally I'd say something like, I'm sure you asked me that for a reason. Why? Or that seems pretty important to you. Why'd you ask? Right? Matt, these questions, these softening statements for reversing, this is where we get away from saying, no, that's a really good question after every question they ask, because we don't want to sound robotic. Second part of this, think of one word answers. If they, so if you're reversing them and they say something like, well, I really need to know if this is energy efficient. That seems really important to you. Can you tell me why? Well, I just have read a lot of good things about energy efficient appliances. Like? Well, you know that they're more durable, they're better for the environment. So, like, you know, those one word follow-ups and like,
Right.
so, right? That kind of stuff can definitely help you in your reverses. It may even some active listening and our paraphrasing. So if I'm hearing you right, you really are wondering about energy efficient appliances more important than anything else. Why? Right? That kind of stuff we have to have in there. Nicole, are you comfortable with the 3 reverses?
Yeah, this is some of my favorite stuff to do.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm really focused on training our guys to do. I think it makes a big difference.
Some things that I would point out here as examples of this stuff. Begin it with a softening statement. Answer every question with a question, but soften it first. Something that I try to do is, remember, we talk about a lot of third-party stories when we're trying to give examples of pain, or third-party stories when we're talking about budget. You know, we just finished a similar project like this. Guy needed a pole barn. He wanted about similar dimensions. Budget was between here and here. Is that what you had in mind? Third-party stories, right? This is good softening statements. You know, Matt, I'm wondering if this can be done by summer. You know, that's a really good question. I think every one of my clients, one of the first things I want to know is how long it's going to take. What's coming up? Why? What's in your future that we need to know about? You know, are you licensed insured? It's a really good question. It's probably the first question I'd ask by every client.
Why do you ask?
Yeah, right. So good question. I'm glad you asked. That's a really good question. Interesting question. A lot of people ask that. Hey, I get asked that. That's one of the first questions I get day one, every client I meet with, right? Put those softening statements in there because, again, you don't want to answer every question with, that's a really good question. So, Matt, read that first one up. Just read that first top one.
Good question. Why did you bring that up just now?
Can you see that relevant in your world?
Yeah.
Nicole, ask the second one.
An interesting question. And the reason you asked is?
Kurt?
A lot of people ask that. Can you tell me why you asked that just now?
Again, this doesn't have to be robotic,
Yeah.
but I know your conversation. A lot of people ask me that. Damn near every job site we're on. Tell me why you just asked me that.
Yeah.
Matt, next one.
Which one we're on?
I understand.
I understand. If you were me, what would you do?
I don't see that applying much to us.
No. Because you're the expert. I'm coming to you to
Right.
tell me what I can do with this property.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a challenge in some situations.
So Matt, Kurt, this last one, I think this is a big one for you guys. That sounds important to you.
Yeah.
We could provide that. What would be the next step? Because again, we've talked about deadlines, timelines, historic events,
Yeah.
family, emotional issues.
A really good qualifying question.
Yeah.
Know this, but one of the things that I talked to Bob that's in town is printing off a schedule, probably having it on my tablet in our software. And when a client asks, what our timeline is, going through these questions with them, and then just bringing up a calendar and showing them on the tablet, because when they see it, it'll resonate with them more than just telling them and just saying, hey, our design processes are 8 to 10 weeks. This is what we're covering in that 8 to 10 weeks. From there, next part, pre-construction.
Yep.
This is what's happening. And, you know, you can lay it out for them in that manner, and then they're seeing it and they're understanding as well that they have some responsibility, whether it's in design or pre-construction and during construction, that, you know, hey, they might have to be picking paint colors at this point during construction, or, you know, in selections, hey, we got to have you get with the cabinet supply company to take a look at the design and make sure you're okay with it. So, you know, there's some tools that we can definitely have, but I definitely like the questions.
And so what I would say in there is, you know, answer every question with a question, but soften it first.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to do these reverses, hey, you know, that makes sense. That's a really good question. Hey, I get asked that a lot. So if we can get them through this, and at the last, the emotional answer question, that third one, do that one, Matt. Wow, that sounds really important to you.
Right.
If we can get that done, what would you like me to do next? Well, I'd like to move forward with the, you know, I'd like you to get this. I'd like to set the next meeting. This is the good thing about Sandler, is that we're not trying to close them on anything. We're not trying to sell them anything. We're trying to show them that we have a solution to their pain. And that sounds important to you. What would you like me to do next? Is their chance to move themselves forward in the process.
Right.
Because again, if you're in the process of something like, you know, hey, do you think I can get this delivered next week? And then you just answer with, well, yeah. Or follow that on the flip side. Think about something that might be perishable or something that might expire. How quickly are you delivering? Well, I can get that there in 10 days. Well, I don't need it for 90 days. Is it going to be bad by then? Is it going to expire by then? Is it going to fade by, like, you know, find out why specifically they're asking stuff about timing, budget, that kind of stuff.
Right.
The great sort of ripple effect of these questions too is it helps you then manage your time, right? Because if you look at your project load and you're like, crap, now I've got to add this other one, but then you ask these questions appropriately and find out they're not in a hurry, you can push them out 6 weeks, and then you've sort of lightened your project load. So that's like that's a very nice ripple effect from these questions.
Oh, 100%.
Yep.
One thing with those two that I was thinking about, I mean, I feel like sometimes we do this. I'd say sometimes, and it's definitely something to stay conscious of, but, you know, in some situations, I feel like I'll give a short answer and then kind of ask that additional question. Like, you know, the licensed insured one is a good one to me. I feel like if somebody asked if we're licensed insured, I would want to immediately say, yes, of course we are. And then ask maybe, you know, that additional question. Because just some of those, I feel like if you ask a question right after someone asks you if you're licensed insured, everyone's going to become that C and be like, why would you dodge that question at all? You know what I mean? And you can be in a situation where you're kind of screwing yourself.
Matt, that's a really good example. On something like that, maybe the softening statement is the answer.
Right.
Hey, are you guys licensed insured? First of all, of course we are. But why did you ask? Why would you be concerned about that?
Right.
Well,
have you had an issue in your, you know, in your past or something that's, you know, important specifically about that to you? You know what I mean? Yeah, something like that. Instead of just, I feel like I would never, if someone asked me that question, I would never say, why is that important to you? You know, they'd probably want me out of their house.
Right. It sounds evasive.
Some of the foundational things you don't necessarily need a follow-up question for either, right?
Right.
Licensed and insured is typically something that for any legitimate business in construction or, you know, whatever, it's just sort of the foundation of doing business. So sometimes
like, God forbid you're selling a car and their first question is, do you have the title?
Yeah.
Well, why would you need to know if I have the title? Like, now it sounds like I did steal the damn
like
car.
You stole the car.
but some of those are, I would still say with that licensed insured, there are some of those that are, like you say, basic stable questions. But even with that, like, it could still be important to ask them, you know, to go into it a little bit more, because them coming out, you know, because anyone that would look, I'd say most people that look at our website, our process, our reputation, our name and stuff like that, I mean, we'd be crazy to be out there like we are not licensed and insured. So if somebody's asking that question, it's like, huh, I wonder if they've been burned. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing to ask a little bit further on. So that's all I'm saying. I would definitely one of those things I'd want to answer quick and say, yes, of course, ease their mind. But it's some of those I think do deserve going through this process to dig in a little bit more and find out, why did they ask that question?
Yeah, and Matt, I think what you're gonna find is big red flag questions like that. Are you licensed and insured? A quick, of course we are, and so are all of our trade partners. But I'm sure you're asking that for a reason.
Yeah.
Why?
Yes.
Like, find out, have they been burned before? It might be that thing, well, my dad told me to make sure I asked that. Okay.
Yeah.
Does your dad have a concern about that? No, he's just a worried father. Okay, good. Or
You could even take that a step further, Chris, and say, is your dad part of the decision making in the project?
I was about to say
Yeah.
that. Is your dad
Yep.
going to be involved in this project? Is he somebody you want to, bring into these meetings?
Yeah,
bingo.
that might be important to know.
Yeah.
Matt, strike that last part. We're not bringing parents in.
But
Right.
if
But I understand what you're saying. If the parent or something is asking that, obviously the parents have been hosed by it before by an unlicensed contractor, and that's usually the reason why.
in a lot of times they've read something or they've seen the local news do their Crime Stoppers Hall of Shame, whatever. And they're
Yeah.
well, I saw something on TV and I needed
Right.
to know if you had or like people that are going to buy cars and go, I was supposed to ask if this says ABS brakes.
Right.
Why do you need ABS? Actually, I don't even know what it stands for. My dad told me that. Like some of that stuff, ask them why, especially if it seems like an out of the blue question, but there's no reason why you can't just cut right to the chase and go, first of all, of course we are.
Right.
Why'd you ask?
Because
Even better, Matt, let me finish this thought.
Yeah.
If they come back and they say, well, the last time we hired this friend of a friend, he wasn't, it took forever, the workmanship wasn't good. Now maybe you're going to find out, okay, so the thing that you need is good communication and good transparency as we're going through this. So let's start with that. Yeah, we are licensed insured. Heck, I can even give you a copy of the license on our deck page if you need it. I don't know if you'd ever do that, but what we want to make sure is that we understand that that's your challenge, is that the right partner is going to be overly communicating and transparent in the entire process because you've been burned before, right?
Right.
Now we know why. All right, we are flying through this today. There's one big one that I want to make sure we do. Never answer an unasked question. I have been a part of it in a meeting with my old web company, and there were some bugs and flaws in a version of a product we used. And we were anticipating that by the time that this project got rolling, that the provider, the manufacturer of the software was going to have the bugs worked out, because it was going to take us a couple of weeks for design, let alone before we even started getting to the development and programming of it. And as we were about to shake hands and move it forward, one of my guys said, and don't worry, WordPress should have all those bugs fixed by the time you guys go live. And the client said, what bugs? What do you mean it's going to be fixed by the time we go live? They didn't ask. Not once did they say, we're worried about the security of our website, and we just wanted to make sure that whatever content management system you use, whatever CMS, if it is WordPress or Joomla or whatever, that it doesn't have any security bugs. They didn't ask. Shut up. Don't answer an unasked question. You're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. I'm going to read this part word for word because it's more appropriate for some of the things that you guys are going to deal with. Answering an unasked question is a common mistake made by salespeople. It occurs when a salesperson responds to a prospect's statement as if though it were a question and providing an answer. When you turn a statement into a question and try to answer it, you put yourself on the defensive by trying to justify a position that may not even be an issue with the prospect. This happens especially when the prospect statement is an objection or a stall. So, God bless you. God bless you. Kurt, Is this a question or a statement? Price is a little higher than I expected.
Statement
Does it deserve an answer?
deserves a question.
Yeah.
Why do you ask? You know, what are your thoughts on what it should be?
Or let that twist like a fart in the wind. Wow, your price seems a little higher than I expected. He didn't ask you for a discount. He didn't ask you to justify the price. Didn't ask you to clarify anything else. Just it's a little higher than I expected.
You know, and it seems like a lot of times when a client makes that statement, they're following it up with their rationale because they know that I might take offense to it immediately.
Mhm.
I had that happen to me the other day. He says, yeah, that's a little bit more than I thought it was gonna be, but I understand material and labor's gone up.
Yeah. So if you hear stuff like, well, we were really happy with the last guy we used. It's not a question. You don't have to come out now and start justifying, well, you're better than the last guy. Because normally if you hear we're happy with the last guy, you're gonna want to say something very like, they're not saying, why should we consider buying from you? They're just sharing, well, we were pretty happy with the last guy we used.
Well, my thing is yes, I'll stay quiet because they're lying. If they were really happy with the last guy they used.
He'd be in
I
their
would-
kitchen
I
right
would- I
now.
wouldn't be there.
Yep. Normally that you see this in the unasked questions part when it comes to stuff like budget and pricing. It's a little bit more than we were hoping for.
You know.
They're not asking you to renegotiate.
You know, Matt and I were talking about it the other day with Bob, and, it's interesting because, this project that Matt was talking about at the start of this today, they said that same statement, but then they said it and we didn't have to say it. We know we added a bunch of stuff along the way and, we thought it was gonna be here, but we understand there's a lot of stuff that we probably didn't know about. But then the other type of client is the one that blames us.
Yeah.
And, we've had that happen. And that to us is that sign right there. Great, blame us because we are not gonna work for you.
Yep.
Well, and I think the client we were talking about earlier, it was a great example where I think we've also learned and come a long way. And I think we handled the whole process, expectation setting. We did a lot of what we're talking about here today throughout that process well. And is why we didn't have an issue presenting a project that was $55,000 over budget.
Right? Because and watch if you do this stuff too.
10%.
People that'll jump and answer questions that you didn't ask. Seems a little steep. Why don't I go talk to the sales manager, see if I can do something better for you? Great. I didn't ask for a lower price, but you're running your ass over to the general sales manager's office to give him a would you take offer on that truck.
Yeah.
Right? Don't answer the unasked questions, especially if they're statements. And the unasked questions that you answer can be painting the seagulls in the picture, like, we're going to get those bugs fixed before we do this. Or don't worry, I'm sure there's going to be no more shortages by the time your project comes around. Well, what do you mean shortages? You know in your contract that you got certain things that talk about materials. You don't need to bring it up. If they care, they can read the fine print. Okay, we're not baiting and switching them. It's just they didn't ask the question, so we're not going to answer it.
It can really take out the feeling of getting defensive too.
Yeah.
Right. And it's about keeping that okayness across the board. You don't feel like you've got to defend anything. And it changes the tone of the conversation.
You think about
Some of
retail.
those things, I feel like there's a balance with some of those things because there are certain things with like material, all that kind of stuff that they may not be asking the question, but we also want to make sure that they're aware of some certain things that I think it's really important to bring up before they sign with us, or else we're in a world of hurt during their project. So I would say there's probably some balance there on not, maybe asking the question to them, or maybe it is still just digging in with more questions, but there's a lot there that I feel like they need to know about. They may have no idea to ask the question on, that we have to kind of educate them that it's going to be important to them, whether they know about it or not.
Well, and that gets us to the emotional part of that. If the first two questions are intellectual and the third answer they give you is the emotional, now maybe you're going to have more information on really what problem you're trying to solve for them. And if they need this knowledge as part of the process. So remember,
Right.
by asking the right questions, you're getting rid of the smoke screens that they're giving you. It
Right.
gives you more information. It builds the bonding and rapport with them that you care, that you're hearing. The questions
Right.
allow you to qualify or disqualify them. Are they good? Or are they going to drive you crazy? It puts you in
Right.
control of the discussion. And what does it avoid, Matt?
Mutual mystification,
And free.
free consultant.
Yep.
I think the big things I can think about that we always have to be cautious of are some of those things that, if I got into timeline with them and they told me the timeline wasn't an issue, they have no worry and they have no rush to get it done. That was all. And if I assume that timeline isn't important to them at that point, and I'm like, oh, cool, okay, no big deal. That's mutual mystification because they think timeline's not a big deal.
Yeah.
They're telling me that, but it ends up being a big deal to every single client. I've never met a client that hasn't had an issue with timeline. We've had clients tell us that a million times, that they're not in a rush to start, they're not in a rush to finish, blah, 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 blah. And they all come out bitching about when's our project going to be done, blah, blah, blah. It happens every single time. So,
And I don't care what it is. And Nicole, I don't know if you're married or not, so please don't take offense to this, but it's the husband most times saying it's not a big deal for time and everything else. And the wife is standing back there and she's not saying a word. And then, a week goes by and the wife is like, hey, can you just get a hold of Fido's and see if they got some type of plan ready? And the husband is like, no, we told them we weren't going to bug them. Because trust me, it happens in my life. And
Yep.
I gotta calm my wife down and say, stop your shit. This is the way it's gonna go. And if you ask me again, I'm gonna freaking ignore you.
Hey, it's already the 11th. Have you heard back from Brian on our 2021 taxes? No, I don't even have the fucking W-2s yet, Anne Marie. Calm down, right? Like, we'll get there.
Yeah.
All right, so
Just an idea there. What if you use that third party example though, like Chris was mentioning earlier, right? What if you said, Matt or Craig in that conversation, hey, we've heard this before. We've heard this before. If it became an issue from other clients, if it became an issue, how would you guys want to bring that up to us? How would you let us know so that we could refigure out a timeline? Right? Because I love that this has turned into a marriage counseling session too. This is like a 2-for-1.
all the time with clients.
Yeah, because that's pretty funny. But what if you did in that example, use that third party, right? And go, you know what? That's awesome. We've heard that before from other customers. And I think it's with good intention you're telling us that. But if your timeline changes like your needs change, how would you let us know that? And what would you expect us to be able to do there? Right?
Yeah,
Right.
Because
I like
then
that
if you
too.
get home to the wife and the wife's like, what the hell? We've got a graduation party and now our house is going to be torn apart.
Yeah.
He knows
Yeah.
that he's already kind of put it on the table.
Be good to send back a message to them too, and just because the messages go to both our clients, and just restate that we had discussed that timeline wasn't an issue for them at all. So
Yeah.
There's
And
no
if it
worries
is
about
now,
when
we
it
need to know
starts.
what.
right. And
If it is now, we need to know why.
Exactly. We need to know why. And we all said we'd give each other about 30 days to wiggle or whatever. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
All
Funny
right, so
story when we
Matt,
talk. What was that?
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would say funny story when we talk about all this. Kurt mentions the husband and wife thing, or couples in general. We've had, I think, 2 clients in the last year that we started with as a couple and are no longer a couple by the time we finish their projects or didn't finish their projects.
Yeah.
That's
But
funny.
the one, we found out That was all she was about. She was about who can I rake over the coals and how can I get what I want? Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah. The other one was interesting because it was the whole project was designed, planned with I guess it was just girlfriend. And
that's the one.
all the communication was with the girlfriend. And then all of a sudden she was gone. And then the project, we're finishing the last little touches with the boyfriend because I think he's technically the owner of the house or whatever, but it was just like everything was with her. And then she just was gone.
Boy, so
Who's
he
that?
just used her for free contracting. Real nice. He used her as the project manager. That
It was
kicked
like the
her
designer, I don't know. So she kind of something like that. But yeah, then all of a sudden, and then we get just really short, easy, I don't mean to say this the wrong way, but the project got a lot easier. I think once, and she was fine, but it was just kind of interesting,
Don't worry,
too
guys.
bad, but
You're not offending me. I deal with wives too, and they're not all the easiest. Trust me.
Yeah.
it could be the other way around though. It definitely has been cases where it's completely the opposite. So
Who was that, Matt?
the one I was talking about,
Yeah.
Will,
Oh, yeah,
Wade?
yes. Yeah.
all right,
she just,
I'm gonna bring us back into Sandler. So let's wrap this up for today. Dummy curve. Matt, what's our ratio in listening to talking when we're in the professional stage?
I don't know if you stated exact, but I would guess we probably want to listen about 70 to 80% and talk about 20 to 30.
70-30. The prospect that's listening is not a prospect. Dummy questions, right? If you know the answer, dummy up. Reverse them, but use a softening statement. I get asked that question on every job site. That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. A lot of people want to know that. You know what? I also don't understand your question. Why did you want to know that? Right? Put those softening statements in there, dummy up, reverse them. Next week, we're digging deep into budget. You guys good?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Nicole, good to see you back. Hope the kiddo's okay.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you guys. Always appreciate it, Chris.
Matt, I'm driving back up next week. I got my lunch and my
Okay.
meeting rescheduled for next week, so I'll be here.
I'll be there then.
All right, brother. See ya.
All right. Thanks again.